Welcome to another featured museum tour. My name is Camille and I'm excited to be your guide to museums all around the world every Friday in July. Today we're traveling all the way to Korea to visit the National Museum of Modern and Contemporary Art. This is an interactive tour, which means that every so often I'll have questions on the screen for you to talk about with the people watching with you. When I read the questions, pause the video and resume when you're done discussing. Get out a piece of paper and a pen or pencil too, because there will also be a drawing challenge. The MMCA actually has 4 branches, each with its own different trademark. MMCA Gwacheon has a beautiful landscape around it and focuses on architecture, design, and crafts. MMCA Doksugung showcases modern art from Korea and overseas. MMCA Seoul introduces global contemporary art. And finally, MMCA Cheongju has state-of-the-art storage facilities and protects the museum's collections. The Google Arts and Culture page for the MMCA has virtual galleries from all 4 branches of the museum. These views are really neat because you can virtually navigate around the museum and stop at whatever works pique your interest, just like you would if you were actually there walking around. The only downside is that you can't zoom in on the work's individual labels to read them. But you can look through the list of works, and if you see any of the ones that caught your eye, you can click on it to read the details. For instance, I thought this painting was really nice, so I found the information page on it to learn more. It's called United Existence by Byun Young-won. I'll tell you about it in a moment, but first, pause the video to talk about these questions. Does this painting remind you of anything? If so, what? What colors do you see in this painting? And do you know of any other artists whose paintings look similar to this? Now, the first thing I thought of when I looked at this painting was, that looks like Dippin' Dots. The next thing that came to mind were those colorblindness tests you might have seen during an appointment with your optometrist. They were invented by Dr. Shinobu Ishihara in 1917, and the idea is that if you can't see the numbers inside all of the circles, you might be colorblind. Anyway, neither of those things were probably the actual inspiration for this painting. The artist, Byun Young-won, was influenced by the Cubism and Impressionist movements, which came out of Paris and included artists like Pablo Picasso and Vincent van Gogh. Paintings in the Cubist style tend to look flat and two-dimensional, featuring a lot of straight lines and geometric shapes. In the case of this painting, the artist mainly uses circles. Right before Byun Young-won painted this, he had been studying psychology and sciences, which influenced his ideas about how different shapes and figures relate to each other. I think that came to a great outcome considering how this painting jumped out at me when I was looking through the virtual gallery. Now, the rest of the works for this tour will be from the MMCA Gwacheon because it's the only virtual gallery offered on the museum's Google Arts and Culture page that alerts you when you're near a work with an available label, and you can click on it to read it. So let's take a look at this painting right over here, which is called The Youth of Bacchus by Kim Do-jin. Pause the video to talk about these questions, then press play to resume when you're ready. What kind of skeletons do you see, and are there any that aren't human? What do you see some of the skeletons holding? And what does it look like they're doing? This painting is actually a reimagined version of a much older painting, also called The Youth of Bacchus, which was painted by William Adolphe Bouguereau in 1884. Now, it's time to learn a $10 word if you don't already know it. This painting is a scene of Bacchanalia, which just means a really wild party, usually involving adult beverages. The word comes from the Roman god of wine named Bacchus, or Dionysus in Greek mythology, and the word Bacchanalia originally referred to the festival of Bacchus, where people would celebrate by drinking a lot of wine. In this painting, a little boy is holding a tambourine, and the man off to the side has cymbals, so this is a loud musical scene. We've also got Bacchus himself over on the left, somewhat unsteadily riding a donkey. Kim Do-jin, the artist of the skeleton version, made this using 3D computer modeling technology. He wanted to make a bare-bones version of this scene, for lack of a better phrase, to get us thinking about what flesh and bones mean in art. Now let's move on to our next work of art. This is called Bidding Farewell to You by Kim Young-ik. Take a minute to discuss these questions. What do the scribbles in the background look like to you? What two languages do you see written over this painting? And how long would you guess that this took to make? I'm going to give you a quick summary of the story that's written on this painting in Korean and English. It tells about how this painting was produced gradually over 17 years, from 1995 to 2012. Kim Young-ik started it with the blue dots, then 10 years later he scribbled a sketch of himself on his 60th birthday in the middle. For the next 4 years after that, he left it outside through rain and snowstorms, and finally added the gold frame and bedposts on the side that make it look like a coffin. It was then ready for display at the Seoul Museum of Art. But in 2011, the museum contacted Kim Young-ik to let him know that children had scribbled on the painting in pink and blue marker. Now, a lot of artists would probably be really upset by that, but he saw the children's additions as exactly what the painting needed to be finally complete. He questions why we've been limited to just looking at art when we go to museums instead of interacting with it further. For the record, I'm not telling you to go into an art museum and scribble on the paintings, but this idea of interacting with art through letting the viewer get involved certainly makes art more accessible for little kids. We've got time to talk about one last work of art before we wrap up our tour. This one is called Crazy Fox Core by an artist named Nanda. Pause the video to discuss these questions and do a drawing challenge. What different things are the women in this picture doing? Draw yourself in a fancy outfit like these women are wearing. How do you think this scene would sound if you were there? The Google Arts and Culture page translates the title of this piece as Crazy Fox Core, but the title can more literally be translated as Fox Fur Core. It's part of a series called Modern Girl, where each work shows a different aspect of modern life interpreted by modern women. This work is a satire on Korean society today. The women all wear sunglasses and fox furs, showing a modern enthusiasm for fashion, and they're doing a Bollywood-style dance in front of a backdrop of a street in Gyeongsang. The artist has said that her process of making works like this is a lot like working on a movie set. She makes the background and then drops in the characters to create a scene. This caught my eye because it looks like they're having fun though. I think this scene would sound a lot like an outdoor concert or a parade. I hope y'all will take some time to look around these galleries a little more on Google Arts and Culture to see all that the MMCA has to offer. In addition to the virtual galleries, they have 4 online tours that will tell you more about their history, artists, works on display, and their collection. Thank you so much for joining me for this featured museum tour, and make sure you check back next Friday for another one.